You ever say yes to something just to prove you're over it? That's what this was. That's the only reason I agreed to be a groomsman in my ex's wedding. I thought, sure, go ahead, Jake. Be the bigger man. Show everyone, especially yourself, that you've moved on. But standing in the middle of a lakeside bachelor weekend with my ex laughing on a porch swing 20 feet away and one of his friends giving me a look I couldn't quite decode, I realized I might have been full of shit. It all started with a phone call I should have let go to voicemail. "Hey," said the voice I hadn't heard in almost 2 years. "So this is probably the weirdest favor I'll ever ask, but would you be a groomsman at my wedding?" That was Alex, my ex. The guy I'd spent 2.5 chaotic, wonderful, quietly devastating years with. The guy I'd lived with, cooked for, fought with over Spotify playlists, and loved like he hung the damn moon. Now he was marrying someone else. I know it's strange," he continued. "But it would mean a lot. You were a huge part of my life, and I promise it won't be awkward." Spoiler alert, it was. The bachelor weekend was at a private lake house in upstate New York. Beautiful, rustic, and clearly expensive. The kind of place you book when the groom's new fiancé comes from money. A dozen guys, a fridge packed with beer, a hot tub, and 3 days until I could go home and pretend none of it had happened. When I arrived Friday afternoon, Alex was already there, standing barefoot on the dock in a white tank top and swim trunks, sun-kissed and grinning like he didn't used to know exactly how to undo me. He jogged up when he saw me. "Hey." He went in for a hug, and, not knowing what else to do, I let him. He smelled the same, cedarwood and sunscreen. His arms were stronger than I remembered. "I'm really glad you came," he said. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "Would have been weird to turn down the invite." He laughed awkwardly, then motioned toward the house. "Come meet the guys." I did. Most of them were from his new life. Corporate types, personal trainers, one guy who said, crushing IPOs like it was a sport. But then there was Drew. Drew was Alex's childhood friend. Tall, rough around the edges, with a mop of dark, unruly curls and a face that looked like it had seen both bar fights and poetry readings. He wore beat-up boots and a permanent half-smirk, and the second we shook hands, I felt something tighten in my chest. "You're Jake?" he asked, eyes scanning me like I was a puzzle. I nodded. "That obvious?" "Alex mentioned you. Said you were—" He paused, then grinned. "Important." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. That night, after a few too many beers and a few too reasons to stay sober, we sat around a fire pit near the water. Alex was across from me, laughing at something one of the guys said. I kept my eyes down, focused on the amber glow of my drink. Drew sat next to me, close enough that his knee brushed mine. He smelled like campfire and something clean, maybe sandalwood. He didn't say much. Just leaned back, watched the flames, and occasionally tossed me a glance that made it hard to swallow. At one point, when everyone else was arguing about who'd win in a fight, Batman or Bond, he leaned in and said, "So what's it like watching your ex marry someone else?" I choked on my drink. He didn't look sorry. "I'm kidding," he said after a beat. "Mostly. But you're kind of a mystery, man. Everyone else here is, like, I went to Wharton, and you're sitting here with your thoughts and your jaw clenched." I glanced over at Alex. He was laughing so hard he slapped someone's arm. "I said yes to prove I was fine," I said quietly. "And are you?" I didn't answer. Drew leaned closer, voice lower now. "Let me guess," he broke it off. "Technically, we broke it off, mutually. Is that the official story?" "It's the one that hurts less," I said before I could stop myself. There was a long pause. Then Drew said, "I don't think you're fine, but I don't think that's a bad thing." He stood up, stretching. "Coming in the lake?" I looked at the dark water, then back at him. "Yeah," I said. "Why the hell not?" The water was cold, sharp, honest. And when Drew swam close, his hand brushing my waist under the surface, I didn't pull away. Not even a little. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because the bed was uncomfortable. It wasn't. It was a king-sized memory foam in one of the lake house guest rooms, complete with blackout curtains and a view of the dock. No, I couldn't sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Drew. More specifically, I felt the way his fingers had grazed my side under the water. Just a quick, almost innocent touch. Except there was nothing innocent about the way he looked at me afterward, like he was testing something, poking the bruise to see if I'd flinch. And the worst part? I didn't flinch. I wanted more. Saturday started too early. Someone cranked music downstairs at 8 a.m. like it was spring break and we were all still 22. I dragged myself to the kitchen and found Drew shirtless, pouring coffee. "Morning," he said without turning. His back was broad, dotted with tiny freckles. I looked too long. "Barely," I muttered, grabbing a mug. He finally turned, smirked when he saw me. "Rough night?" "Not exactly restful." He handed me the creamer without asking. "You've got that look." "What look?" "The one guys get when they spend the night reliving a touch." I choked on my coffee. He raised an eyebrow, smug. "You're not subtle," I said. "I'm not trying to be." The day was filled with distractions. Canoeing, grilling, half a dozen groomsmen getting sunburned and acting like we were filming a broy beer commercial. I stayed on the edge of things. Not because I didn't want to be included, but because I didn't trust myself. Not with Drew glancing at me every time Alex laughed a little too loud nearby. Not with Drew peeling off his shirt after a round of volleyball, sweat glistening on his chest like some cruel cosmic dare. Not with Drew sitting too close to me on the dock, sipping from a shared bottle of whiskey like we were already something. "You know what's funny?" he said around sunset. I didn't answer. I was too busy watching Alex inside the house, draping an arm around his fiancée's shoulders. Drew followed my gaze. "You've got the front row seat to something that used to be yours," he said. "That's brutal. You don't hold back, do you?" "Nope," he leaned in. "But if I were you, I wouldn't be thinking about him," I turned. "Oh yeah? Who should I be thinking about?" He didn't blink. "Me." There was a beat. A pause so full of tension, it almost felt like a challenge. Then someone called out from the fire pit and the moment broke. But not for long. That night we played drinking games, the kind that never end well. Never have I ever turned into confessions. Most likely two turned into dares. By midnight, half the guys were shirtless. Someone had jumped in the lake without clothes. A few were passed out on lawn chairs. And Drew was beside me, legs stretched out, a casual hand resting on the bench between us, just close enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin. "Truth or dare?" he asked me, low enough that no one else heard. I glanced at him. "Truth." He smiled. "What's the worst part of this weekend?" It wasn't even a hard question. "Sitting here pretending I'm okay." He nodded, slow, then leaned closer. "Dare?" I thought I picked truth. "Yeah," he said. "But now I'm curious what you'd do." I looked at him, looked at the way his mouth curved, confident, the way his eyes flicked down to mine. The tension between us was sharp now, coiled, barely holding. "Try me," I said. He hesitated, just for a second. Then, "I dare you to kiss me, but only if you mean it." And just like that, everything got quiet. The fire crackled. Somewhere, someone snored. Alex was out of sight. I stared at Drew, at his mouth, at the challenge in his eyes. And before I could overthink it, I leaned in and kissed him. Not drunk, not playing, just, yes. His hand found the back of my neck. He kissed like someone who knew what he wanted, like someone who wasn't trying to make a point or stir drama. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a spark that lit something I wasn't ready to name. And when I pulled back, breathless, Drew just smiled. "Yeah," he said. "That felt like you meant it." He stood up, brushing imaginary dirt off his jeans. "Night, Jake." And just like that, he walked off into the dark, leaving me there, heart racing, wondering what the hell I'd just started. The morning after the kiss felt like standing in a minefield barefoot. I woke up early, way too early, and stared at the ceiling trying to convince myself I hadn't ruined the whole weekend. Or worse, made something up that hadn't actually happened. But it wasn't in my head, it was real. The kiss was real. The way Drew had looked at me after was real. The slow, confident way he walked off like he'd just dropped a match and knew the fire would come. What wasn't clear was what came next. I avoided the kitchen, avoided the dock, avoided Drew. Instead, I walked down the gravel path behind the house, let my feet take me somewhere quiet. Somewhere I could breathe. The woods weren't far, and there was a little bluff overlooking the lake. I sat there, pulling my hoodie tight around me, even though the sun was already climbing. I didn't want to talk to anyone, especially not Alex. But of course, that's exactly who found me. "Been looking for you," he said behind me, his voice soft, hesitant. I didn't turn around. "Didn't sleep great," I replied. He sat down beside me anyway. We were silent for a long time. Just the wind moving through the trees and the soft lapping of the lake against the rocks. Then Alex said, "You kissed Drew." My stomach dropped. I turned to him slowly. "Is that a statement or a question?" His jaw clenched. "It's not judgment. I'm just surprised. You're the one who invited me to your wedding." He laughed, but there was no real humor in it. "I didn't think you'd start getting involved with my best friend." I looked away, heart pounding. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it?" I hated that I didn't have an answer. He kept looking at me, and when I finally turned back, there was something raw in his eyes. "You know," he said, voice lower now, "I wasn't sure if inviting you was selfish or sentimental. Maybe both. But I thought it'd be nice. You and me closing the loop." I nodded. "Closure?" He exhaled, nodding too. "Yeah. But I didn't realize it would feel like watching someone walk out of a room I didn't even know I still wanted to be in." That hit harder than I expected. "Alex, I'm not saying I want to undo everything. I'm marrying Liam because I love him. But seeing you here, seeing you laugh, be yourself again, it messed with me more than I thought it would." We sat in it. The quiet, the weight. Then he said, "Just don't let Drew be some reaction to me. He doesn't deserve that." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. He stood, brushed off his pants, and gave me a tight smile. "Rehearsal dinner tonight. Don't be late." Later, back at the house, Drew found me on the back deck, pretending to read. "Hey," he said. I looked up. "Hey." He pulled up the chair next to me, sat down backward on it, arms folded over the top. "So, was that a one-time thing?" he asked, not bothering to be subtle. I watched him for a second. "Do you want it to be?" He tilted his head. "Depends. Are you kissing me because I'm not him?" That's exactly what Alex asked. Drew's face stayed still for a beat. Then he nodded, like he appreciated the honesty. "I'm not mad," he said, "but I'm not interested in being some halfway thing either." "You think that's what this is?" I asked. "I think you're in the middle of a messy weekend at your ex's wedding, and I kissed you by a fire, and now you're trying to decide what that means." He wasn't wrong. "I don't regret it," I said. "I want you to know that." Drew looked at me, really looked. "Then kiss me again," he said, "right there, on the deck, in the daylight. No fire. No alcohol, no excuses." I did, and it felt even more real than the first time. Afterward, Drew leaned in close. "That," he whispered, "didn't feel like a maybe." Then he got up and left me sitting there, heart hammering, breath caught, wondering what I was going to do with the rest of this goddamn weekend. The rehearsal dinner that night felt like one of those dreams where you're standing there completely exposed and no one seems to notice, but you're still convinced everyone knows. Alex looked calm, collected. He moved through the dinner with practiced ease, thanking people, laughing at toasts, smiling at Liam like they were already married. I kept telling myself that's how it should be. That's what I wanted for him. But then I'd catch Drew watching me from across the table or brushing my arm as he passed behind me, and everything in my chest would tighten in the worst and best way. Matthew, another one of the groomsmen, noticed it too. "You and Drew seem close," he said during the salad course, nodding toward where Drew was talking with someone by the bar. I gave a non-committal shrug. We've talked a bit. Matthew raised an eyebrow. Talked, huh? That what we're calling it now? I looked at him. What's that supposed to mean? He leaned in slightly. Just be careful. Drew doesn't really do feelings. He's more of a weekend flirt, if you know what I mean. Something about the way he said it got under my skin. You two have history? Matthew smirked, but didn't answer. Typical. Drew returned a few minutes later and handed me a whiskey. You looked like you needed this. I took it, trying to keep my face neutral. Thanks. He watched me a second too long, then leaned in. What did Matthew say? I didn't answer. Drew sighed. Let me guess. Something about how I'm not relationship material? His words, not mine, I said quietly. And what do you think? I hesitated. I think I don't know you. That made him pause. Fair enough, he said, taking a sip from his own glass. But I meant what I said. I don't play games. Not with this. The way he said it made it hard not to believe him. Later, after the speeches and the clinking of glasses, Alex pulled me aside. We ended up by the dock again, moonlight cutting a silver path across the lake. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Do you still love me? I froze. He didn't look angry or sad, just curious, like he genuinely needed to know the answer. I did, I said, completely. And now? I don't know, I admitted. Sometimes it still feels like you're a part of me. Like there's a door in my head that only opens when you're around. But I don't think I want to go through it anymore. He nodded slowly, eyes on the water. I guess I just needed to hear it, he said, even if I already knew. You happy with him? I am, Alex said, but I'll always wonder what might have happened if we'd tried harder. That hit like a punch to the chest. Yeah, I said, me too. He looked at me again, softer this time. Whatever's happening with Drew, don't waste it. I blinked. You're okay with that? He gave a sad smile. No, but I think maybe he sees something in you that I forgot how to look for. Then he patted my shoulder and walked away. That night, I didn't sleep much, again. Drew knocked on my door around midnight. He didn't say anything. Just stood there in a t-shirt and sweats, hair messy, like he wasn't sure if this was a good idea. I let him in anyway. We didn't do much, just lay on the bed, side by side, staring at the ceiling. His arm brushed mine. Eventually, his fingers found mine under the blanket. It was quiet, comfortable. For the first time all weekend, my heart wasn't racing. It was just steady. Hey, Drew whispered after a long stretch of silence. Yeah? I'm not going anywhere tomorrow, just so you know. I turned to look at him. He wasn't smiling. He meant it. And for the first time in a long time, I believed someone when they said they'd stay. Sunday morning arrived with fog on the lake and a strange stillness in the air. Like the world was holding its breath, it was wedding day. The house buzzed with quiet motion, steam from coffee mugs, zipped garment bags, the subtle panic of men trying to tie matching ties and pretend like this wasn't a big deal. But it was. For Alex, for Liam, and I was starting to realize, maybe for me too. Drew wasn't in my room when I woke up, but his side of the bed was still warm. He'd left quietly, respectfully, like he didn't want to assume anything. Or maybe he just knew I needed space. I stared at the ceiling for a long time before getting up. Every inch of me felt wired, tense, with the knowledge that this was it, the end of something. Maybe more than one thing. By noon, we were suited up. Matching dark blue tuxes, crisp white shirts, slim black ties. I looked good. We all did. That's what happens when someone's fiancé hires a stylist. The ceremony was scheduled for 4, just before sunset. The venue was a clearing a few hundred feet from the lake, ringed by string lights and low wooden benches. Rustic, intimate, perfect. Every detail screamed Pinterest and disposable income. Alex looked radiant. That was the only word for it. Radiant. Happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not fake happy. Not I'm smiling through it happy. Real. Liam looked nervous, but in a charming, human way. The kind of nervous that says, I know what I'm about to do matters. And it did. I stood beside Drew in the groomsman line, palms sweating even though the air was cool. He leaned toward me during the pre-ceremony lull and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, just a little full." "Of feelings?" I laughed under my breath. "Yeah." He bumped his shoulder lightly into mine. "We'll unpack it later." The ceremony was beautiful. Of course it was. Liam's vows were short, shaky, emotional. Alex's were longer, more composed, but full of love. He talked about second chances, about learning to let go of perfect and embrace real. It was hard to listen to that without reading between the lines, without wondering how much of that was about me. I didn't cry, but my chest hurt. And when they kissed, when everyone clapped and stood, I let the moment wash over me like a tide I couldn't fight anymore. They were happy, and that had to be enough. The reception was back at the house. Lights strung across the backyard, a tent with a makeshift dance floor, music that got better the more you drank. I tried to enjoy it, I really did. I danced with Matthew, made a joke toast that landed well enough, took pictures, smiled until my cheeks hurt. But part of me kept looking for Drew. I finally found him near the bar, talking with two of Alex's cousins. He looked good, hair slightly wind-tossed, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, drink in hand. When our eyes met, he excused himself and came over. "Thought I lost you," he said. I shrugged. "Just needed a minute." He studied me. "You okay?" "I don't know," I said, honest for once. "I feel like I closed a chapter today, but I'm not sure what book I'm in now." He didn't flinch. Instead, he set his drink down, stepped closer, and took my hand. Right there, in front of everyone. "I don't care what book it is," he said, "as long as I'm in the next chapter." I laughed, breathless. "You're really not afraid, are you?" "Terrified," he said. "But I think that's kind of the point." And then, without asking, without checking, he kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was seen. Across the backyard, I caught Alex looking. Just for a second. He held my gaze, then smiled. Small, tired, real. And for the first time, I felt the knot in my chest start to loosen. Maybe I hadn't come to this weekend for closure. Maybe I'd come to find something new. I thought waking up after the wedding would feel like waking from a dream. But it didn't. It felt grounded, quiet, like the end of a movie that doesn't try to tie everything up too neatly. I woke up in Drew's room. We didn't sleep together. Not in that way. He'd pulled me close in the middle of the night, one hand resting on my stomach, steady. Safe. We hadn't said much before falling asleep, just exchanged a look, a smile, and let silence do the rest. It was the first time in a long time I didn't feel like I had to explain myself to someone. When I finally sat up, Drew was already awake, lying beside me with his arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling. "Morning," he said. "Barely," I replied, voice scratchy. He rolled onto his side and looked at me. "So, what now?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, wedding's over, weekend's over. We go back to our regular lives. I fly out tomorrow, you drive back. So, what are we doing with this?" It was the question I'd been circling for hours, maybe days. Part of me wanted to say something safe, something that let him off the hook, something that made it easier to pretend this was just a weekend thing. But I didn't want that. "I want to see where it goes," I said. Drew's face didn't change. He just nodded. "Okay? That okay with you?" He smiled. "Yeah, it is." We packed slowly that day. No rush, no urgency. Everyone moved like they were nursing emotional hangovers, even if they hadn't touched a drop the night before. Alex and Liam left first, with their hands full of wedding gifts and takeout containers and that post-ceremony glow. Before he got into the car, Alex found me. "Hey," he said, pulling me in for a quick, tight hug. "You good?" I asked. "I'm really good," he said, eyes shining. "But I'm also really glad you came." "Me too." He looked past me toward Drew, who was standing by the porch with a bag over his shoulder. "You gonna call him after this weekend?" I think I might, I said. Good, Alex said. He's the kind of guy who pretends he's a mess, but he's actually the most honest person I know. You don't get that very often. I nodded. Then, without saying anything else, Alex climbed into the car and they drove away. The house emptied out fast after that. People hugged, exchanged numbers they'd never use, promised a visit. Drew and I were the last two left. I stood on the porch, keys in hand, while he loaded his duffel into the back of his rental car. We looked at each other for a long moment. This part really feels awful, I said. Yeah, he agreed, but it's just the part before the next part. You sound like a therapist, he grinned. A hot one, though, I laughed. Definitely. He stepped forward, wrapped his arms around me, and held on for a beat longer than necessary. I'll text you when I land, he said into my shoulder. I'll be waiting. We didn't kiss goodbye. It didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like a comma, like we were pausing. Just for a second. The drive home was long, quiet. Peaceful in the way roads are when you've said what you needed to say. I kept thinking about the lake, the dock, that first night by the fire, and the way Drew had said, I don't play games. Not with this. He meant it. And for once, so did I. 3 weeks later, I found myself pacing around my apartment with the kind of nervous energy you get before a first date, even though, technically, this wasn't a first date. Drew was coming over. We'd been texting every day since the wedding. Not just casual updates or memes, but real conversations. He told me about his job, his family, his dog who hated the UPS guy and loved strawberries. I told him about my work, my screwed-up coffee order, and how weird it was not to have Alex in my life anymore. Not as a boyfriend, not even as a question mark. It felt easy, natural, like we weren't building something from scratch, but picking up something that had been waiting in the wings. And now he was flying in for the weekend. No wedding, no lakeside chaos, just us. When I opened the door, there he was, standing in jeans and a hoodie, a small overnight bag in one hand, and that same tilted smile that had ruined me back on the dock. Hey, he said, like we'd just seen each other yesterday. Hey, I replied, stepping aside to let him in. You're really here. Told you I would be. He dropped his bag and pulled me into a hug. It was easy, familiar, but still lit a fuse under my skin. And then he pulled back just enough to kiss me. Slow, certain. And this time, there was no one watching. No baggage looming in the background, no complicated dynamics or half-closed doors. Just us. We spent the weekend doing the kind of nothing that feels like everything. Sleeping late. Cooking badly. Watching old movies on the couch, Drew's feet tangled with mine under a shared blanket. He kissed me like he meant it every time, touched me like I was something new to discover. And every night, we crawled into bed like two people who knew what it was to lose something and were ready to try again. Sunday came too fast. But instead of feeling like the end, it felt like the beginning. I don't want to do long distance forever, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling his socks on slowly. I'm not built for texting and hoping. Then don't, I said, heart thudding in my chest. I've been looking to move. I could look near you. He blinked, surprised. Seriously? I wouldn't say it if I wasn't. He stared at me for a moment, like he wasn't sure whether to believe it. Then he smiled. You're kind of unbelievable, you know that? I walked over, kissed the side of his neck. So believe it. It wasn't perfect. There were bumps. Schedules. Fears. That weird moment in the grocery store where I saw Alex's favorite cereal and had to walk away for a second. But it was real. And it was ours. One night, months later, we were sitting on the couch, watching something dumb and eating Thai food straight from the containers, when Drew leaned over and said, You know what still blows my mind? What? That you went to your ex's wedding thinking it was the end of something and ended up finding me. I laughed, nudging his shoulder. Yeah, plot twist of the year. He reached over, laced his fingers through mine. Glad you showed up, he said. Me too, I replied. And I meant it, every word.